Hello, ladies. It is I, Mr. Essential, coming at you once again, and I am on location today because the weather is absolutely gorgeous. Feel that sun on my face, even though we do have some overcast clouds. Now, yesterday, if you recall, I promised young Morgan D, and she is from the South, that I would get into why essential employees are not getting to the pay window, why they are not getting to the pay window as if they were actually essential. So anyway, here is I don't have the document of essentialness. It's in my car. So this scrap of paper that I took notes on will represent the document of essentialness. Anyway, as you recall, yesterday I went on a bit of a rant about that moron with the Chicago Cubs sticker on the back of his minivan that needed to learn to read before he could get into the line at my official fast food restaurant of officialness. So anyway, I promised young Morgan D that I would go into why she is not getting, and the rest of the essential people are not getting paid like they're essential. So today this one's going to be a little different. I'm going to have to work off of some notes here. Oh, speaking of these notes, these represent the document of essentialness that I don't have it. It's in my car. Anyway, here's the story. Today I'm going to cover some history. I'm going to lay the groundwork, as it were, of why we're not getting to the pay window. And then the next 3 episodes are going to be why those forces that are acting against us to keep us from the pay window. And then on the 5th episode of this, I'm going to talk about what you can do. Maybe you can get to the pay window. Maybe you can find some other ways to not get to the pay window but improve your life. So anyway, let's jump right into the history. Now, there's 4 events, okay? 4 important events, and you're probably not even thinking about what these 4 important events are because most of them happened before most of you or I or us were born, okay? Now, the first important event happened way back in 1913, and that's when the Federal Reserve System was created. Now, if you take a look at one of them, where'd it go? Dang it. I know I got one. It's in my pocket. Just wait a second. Here it is. If you take a look at one of these delightful dollars that we exchange for goods and services, you'll see on the top of it, it says Federal Reserve Note. It does not say United States of America. It says Federal Reserve Note. And if you look real closely, it used to say it's legal tender for all debts, public and private. Now, that part has been removed on some bills. I do not know why, but it has. Anyway, so the Federal Reserve was created in 1913 to be the lender of last resort for banks. Okay, that was its primary purpose, so that if there was a run on a bank, the bank wouldn't fold. Okay. Now the next, actually non-event happened in 1920. Okay, 1919, 1920. There was a depression there. But nobody knows about that depression because nobody made it famous. That depression happened at the end of the Wilson administration after he had become gravely ill, and his wife, God rest her soul, took over as the gatekeeper, and she regulated, basically we'll call it, what events got to his attention, what were handled by him. And she did not think the economic crisis warranted his attention, so she didn't bother to give it to him. He left office. Warren Harding came in. Harding was a Republican who was not going to intervene anyway, and that depression was on its way to recovering. So we had a depression in 1920. Nobody knows about it, and the reason nobody knows about it is nobody did anything about it. They just let it run its course. All right. But then we had the Great Depression in 1929, and that brought about interventionist policy from Roosevelt and the central bankers, and they tried to do all kinds of things, the triple C, quadruple C, Civilian Confederation Corps, all that stuff. And people say, well, World War II ended it. No, it didn't. There was still economic malaise after the end of World War II. What ended that depression was Eisenhower deregulating the economy. Please remember Eisenhower's farewell address. He warned against the military-industrial complex. Well, it's a different complex, but it's still something to be worried about. All right? The next important event happened in 1944, and that was the conference at Bretton Woods. And at Bretton Woods, it was determined that the U.S. dollar would be the global reserve currency. and that 1 ounce of gold would always be able to be exchanged for 35 US dollars. The flaw in this plan is it required US politicians to be honest and live within the structure of the agreement. And no, they just didn't do it. US fiscal policy, they kept manufacturing dollars out of thin air. Okay? So suddenly there were more dollars than there was gold available to redeem them. So Charles de Gaulle, president of France, began hoarding dollars. And he was going to come to the United States and empty Fort Knox. He had enough dollars to do it. President Nixon got wind of it, and in 1971, he took us off the gold standard. When he took us off the gold standard, gold was $35 an ounce. Now, we got some sound effects in the background. Now, gold goes for over $1,700 an ounce. We're talking about 40 years, 1971 to 2021, 40 years, 50 years, okay? But gold has gone up by a factor of 50, from $35 an ounce to over $1,700 an ounce. It's a factor of 50. Look at it another way. Your purchasing power has been eroded by a factor of 50, but your wages have not gone up by a factor of 50. So that's another way you're getting screwed. All right. And then the last event, and there's two of these, were the bailouts of the auto industry, specifically the Chrysler bailout in 1979 to 80, and then the second Chrysler bailout in 2009. When you hear bailouts, bailout doesn't protect anybody's job except the corporate executives. We have a bankruptcy law called Chapter 11. If they had allowed Chrysler to go into Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 1979 and 1980, here's what would have happened. The bankruptcy would have been prepackaged. Chrysler would have kept on functioning. Chrysler would have been forced to change with the times, which they did because of the bailout. They would have been forced to change anyway. But all of the stock of Chrysler would have been wiped out. It would have gone to zero, been of worth no value. The bonds of Chrysler would then be converted to stock, and the bondholders would run the company. The board of directors and the CEO would be out. Okay? That's what would have happened. The rank and file would have stayed there. Instead, the Treasury gave Chrysler $1.5 billion of our dollars to keep them afloat. And then in 2009, there was another bailout. But that bailout was even worse because the stockholders were protected and the bondholders were the ones that were screwed. And it should have been the other way around. So those four events set the stage for what's happening now in our economy and why those of us who are essential are not getting to the big pay window like we should. I'll have more on this over the next 4 days because there are three underlying forces that depress your wages and limit your ability to advance financially and material in this world. And then on the fourth day, I'll go into something you can do about it. Now, these posts will run parallel to my normal ranting, somewhat humorous, I hope, commentaries. And in either case, ladies, if you're looking for someone who's got a big old thinker and maybe some character flaws, you can you just drop me an email at themressential@gmail.com. And again, take your zinc, do your yoga, and screwdriver, gin tonic. Gotta go. Where's the button? Dang it, where'd the button go?